Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld podcast, your source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. And this week, George Lucas was honored at the Cannes Film Festival, and we will be sharing our thoughts on what he had to say while he was there. He did a lot of talking. That's the most I think George has spoken in several years, at least spoken publicly. So we'll get into all of that, his thoughts on Star Wars without him, his thoughts on his career. Really interesting conversation. Plus, we'll be gearing up for the premiere of The Acolyte. That is less than a week away now. This time next week, we'll be discussing the premiere. So why not get excited and break down some of the updates and previews that have been coming out? That's what we'll be doing here. And of course, we'll be answering your questions at the end of the show in another edition of Ask the SWU, a segment which after last week's show, I think we can safely call Unhinged. All that and so much more here tonight on the Star Wars Underworld podcast. First, though, introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. That can happen. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, he's the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Hello, Chris. Hello. Wait, no, that's not my line. Sorry. Sorry. Just going next is weird for me. Also, yeah, look. I'm happy to be back. I know you guys miss me. I missed you guys. Okay, it was really weird. It's really weird seeing the notification of the show is going live, and I'm eating dinner in a faraway place, and yeah, wild. But
we're in like a mythic land or something.
Where'd you go? Mines of Moria? What even a fairy god? Where were you?
The bridge to Terabithia? Where were you?
Yeah. What Narnia were you in, Ben?
I try to be mysterious, guys. Okay, I don't get anywhere exotic lately. Mysterious. Okay. But yeah, so we've got a lot going on. George is back, and he said a lot of things, and he set the internet on fire, and also The Acolyte comes out in 4 days? So wild stuff.
Indeed. Also with us, as always, from the Raeside, it's Hannah Raeside.
G'day there, and it is time to begin. Hashtag the Vernside. If you follow my account on Twitter, I put out a ridiculous tweet yesterday saying if I get over 500 likes on the tweet I made, I will paint my face green in honor of Vernestra, one of the High Republic characters showing up in The Acolyte. I'm going to be painting my face green for her. I said 500 because I've done these tweets before and I've said like 100 likes or like 200 likes, but I was like, this is a lot. This is a big commitment to go green. So I'll set it at 500. We might get there, maybe not. But I woke up this morning to over 700 likes on that tweet. So after this, got to go to the face paint store and get green face paint. So hashtag
just
the
say a
Vernside.
million next time.
Well, I know. I just gotta go 1,000 or something. Yeah, 10,000.
I was gonna ask, how many likes do we have to get you to not just paint yourself green for the Raeside on Tuesday, but also stay green all the way until Thursday?
I think there would be
for
more
the
than
show,
that.
for the Star Wars
Underworld
podcast.
You know what?
How many likes is it gonna take? How many?
Okay. 5,000.
5,000.
5,000.
So you
5,000
like 10
likes.
times. 10
Make
times
the
as
tweet.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
stay
good.
green, and we will be checking in to make sure that you're living your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everything you're gonna do. Everything you're gonna do. Yeah. We'll need constant Instagram story updates. We'll need constant updates, and we'll just keep it going that way. Well, that's gonna be quite the stream, I'm sure. That'll be very exciting. So yeah, join the Vern side. Chris not with us this week. Chris is off quite literally on Endor. Just wandering around the redwood forest.
Photos.
Chris
might be on the bridge to Orbithia, actually.
Yeah, he may well be. Chris literally sent us a picture. I swear it could just be a behind the scenes shot from Return of the Jedi. It's just.
I mean, we will neither confirm nor deny that he is literally on a spit over an open fire in Ewok Village right now, and we are launching a desperate operation to rescue him. And we will use our magic.
Need 5,000 likes on Twitter, and then we'll go.
We'll get Chris back.
Yeah, we'll take Chris from the Ewoks who are going to eat him. Oh my goodness! But yeah, Chris will be back with us next week. We'll all be together next week for the Acolyte premiere as we break that down. But lots to get to this week. Like we said, George Lucas, there's lots of Acolyte stuff. We'll get to all of that. But first, a couple of reminders. As always, we want to remind you to subscribe. Whatever you're listening to this on, subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe on all the things. That would be amazing. Just subscribe with us. And if you're listening on a platform or watching on a platform that allows you to leave a review, leave one, especially a 5-star one. If you want to support the show financially, you can become a channel member here on YouTube. It's just sort of like a tip jar. We haven't come up with anything cool to give you for being a channel member, so just consider it like a tip jar.
money, green stuff. Give us green stuff.
Or multicolored stuff for the rest of the world. You can also
right. Your money is way better.
It is. You can also super chat with us during the show. That's the best way to get your comments read during the show, during the Ask the SWU segment specifically. Join the Discord. Links in the description. Keep the conversation going. It's a fun time. Ben does all sorts of fun stuff over there. And you can follow at the SWU on social media. And like all the posts, and Hannah will paint herself green, and we'll save Chris from an Ewok and all that stuff. Follow us on all the social medias, including Threads. All right, that's it. Star Wars Underworld Network. That's what I forgot. The most important one. Check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including the Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, the Tractor Beam, and more. All right, let's get into things, and let's talk about George Lucas. George Lucas, he who created Star Wars. He got the Palme d'Or from the Cannes Film Festival this week. He was presented with the honorary award by Francis Ford Coppola. So nice reunion between the two of them. And he also did like a hour and a half long sit down interview with, I'm not sure who this guy was, but he was on stage and he interviewed George for like an hour and a half. Have you guys watched the interview? Have you seen what George said?
A lot of, not in full, but I've seen a lot of it in different sections. But yeah, this guy coming out. He's like this mythical beast that nowadays we're trying to find where he is and what he's up to. And you hear murmurings of him being places, but he just came out in full force over that weekend, and it was really cool to see. And might I say, before we get into what he spoke about, and the comments he made on lots of things, he's looking pretty good. He's looking very well. Isn't he just? And also, because he's 80 now. He's turned 80 this year or last year.
More than 80 now. Yeah.
There you go. And his head of hair is so lush. Go back to the previous photo. Look at this lush head of hair. What is that? Is perfection.
That is having several $1 billion to spend
that's
on
what
your
that
hair.
does. Yeah. Oh boy, yeah. But anyway, he looks really well and fantastic. And which is really just nice. And yeah, what a way to just randomly come out and go, you know what? This thing I kind of refuse and very reluctant to talk about, I am going to sit and talk about for an hour and a half. So it's super fun. Yeah, what a good time.
Yeah. Ben, have you watched it?
I haven't caught much of it, unfortunately. I was in a mythical faraway land, so I didn't have much internet access out there. But yeah, I did. I saw the little clip of Francis Ford Coppola giving him the award, actually showing up, and then that was really sweet. I was really, I was taken aback by how like really emotional that made me. He's just like, oh, this guy, they've been friends for so long. I genuinely don't know if George like knew he was there. It almost seemed like it was a surprise. But it's just really cool to see the two of them together, and after everything they've been through, and and seeing George being celebrated. I know there's been a lot of stuff said online about what George has been saying, good and ill, unfortunately. And some of the things George said, it's worth discussing. It's worth discussing with a critical lens, because George, we've never claimed that he was a perfect person. He's a very interesting character. He has, he's the man is perfect. A lot of opinions, a lot of different things, and he says some weird stuff sometimes. We still love him for it. But ultimately, just seeing him being in the spotlight and being like, "Hey, George, you're a pretty cool dude. We think you're going places, man."
Yeah, going places like the Cannes Film Festival, or just whatever he wants to do because he's retired and rich.
I'm still with my theory that he secretly made like 10 films, and the date that George Lucas dies, it'll all be released. I'm still with this theory.
Well, that will be fascinating if that happens. Ben, it's gonna be real interesting because I've watched the whole interview. I watched the whole interview to be ready for this show, and a lot of these things that get said.
Roasted.
Yeah, right. A lot of
ready
these things
for the show.
Yeah. A lot of these things that get said in the interview, I think people read into the wrong parts of what's being said. And I think what ultimately what we're going to do, what we're going to get this opportunity between you and me, Ben, is that you're going to be person who just read the quotes, person who just saw the headline. And then we're going to try and add the context to what was actually said. Because the interview, as with anything, people grab the most jazzy 3 sentences out of something and then run with it as headlines that then get repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. But in reality, I honestly don't think George said anything all that new or interesting. Like, it's interesting. I think interesting is the wrong word. Sorry. It didn't say anything all that new. It's all interesting, and we've heard a lot of it before, but it was just kind of, it was a little bit of the greatest hits of the George Lucas interviews, I think.
And yeah, there was, because I was purely observing it from because when it was all happening, because I was posting stuff on Star Wars, on our social medias, and kind of looking at it and trying to get, because some of the stuff was like, there was a written interview, but it was behind a paywall for a French site, and you couldn't really get to it. And the video really wasn't out. And there was a lot of tweets and quotes. And to be honest, a lot of misquotes. There was a quote, we'll get to it in a few minutes, or maybe just a second, of him talking about like the whole, there was something that the Hollywood Reporter put out that said, here he said he's talking about the new Star Wars movies and how when he sold the company, nobody knew what the Force was. And then he did all this. And then come to find out a few days ago, people start digging into the actual interview and going like, he wasn't talking about the sequels at all. He was talking about The Empire Strikes Back. He was talking about, having conversations with Irvin Kershner and saying like, Irvin Kershner's not getting this because Star Wars so new at the time. And he's the guy that made all this up. And he's trying to explain this to his new director. And it was stuff like that just taken out of context. And then, obviously the usual suspects will do as they do with taking whatever quotes they can to fit their own narrative. And that can go both ways sometimes, but, for the most part, I think I agree with you. The stuff I've read, I'm like, I've heard this before from George. I've heard George say this before. It's not necessarily newsworthy. So, yeah, it's interesting. I love to hear George talk. I could do it all day long, and yes, I will get to the interview and listen to the whole thing. But ultimately, it's not. I don't think it's as newsworthy as people are making out to be.
Mm-hmm. It's like I said. It's good. It's interesting. George is going over his career, and in some ways, he almost seems more interested in talking about the non-Star Wars parts of his career Like at one point, the interviewer is like, let's talk about Star Wars. And George is like, we haven't talked about American Graffiti yet. And then they spend like 20 minutes on American Graffiti. So I think, I think this is just George, reflecting on his career. And really, what I would love is some point in the next couple of years, for George to do like a sit down interview like this with the idea of talking about his movies as they are, rather than him, talking about the production of his movies. And, he says things like nobody understands the Force. Well, I'd like to hear him talk about that. I'd like to hear him talk about that sort of thing. I'd like to hear him talk about his characters, and the universe that he built. I've heard all the stories about making American Graffiti and THX and Star Wars over the years. We've heard them all. There was a terrific unauthorized biography of George Lucas that came out a couple of years ago, that really gives a terrific overview of all of that stuff. And Ben, you talk about George and Coppola. Like, that book really goes into what their relationship was like. They were friends, but they were also sort of mentors and mentor and mentee to each other, and that relationship would sort of flip back and forth depending on who was more successful at different points in time. So that stuff's all well and good, but I'd like to hear George. I'd like new DVD commentaries, is I guess what I'm getting at. That's sort of the type of thing I'd like to hear from George at this point.
Interesting.
This interview was good, but kind of the best part of it, or at least the video, is when the guy is like the guy's in the front row who's filming it, and he's like resting the camera on the stage, and some usher has to come up and tell him, no, you can't do that. And like, that's all in the video. And that's kind of the most sort of fun bit. And we'll talk some more about that in just a second, but we're getting a live report from the forest moon of Endor. We go live to Chris, live on the forest moon of Endor.
He lives.
Are there any Ewoks, Chris? Do you see any Ewoks?
Are you being chased? Are you being hunted?
I fought them off. I fought them off and I survived.
But they could come for you again.
I had to hike up a mountain. I had to hike up a mountain to get a signal to send this transmission up to your planet. But it worked, apparently, because you can hear me.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, you're literally in the Redwood Forest right now. You're where they filmed Return of the Jedi. What's it like to be on like such hallowed ground like that for Star Wars fans?
It does feel like I'm in the movie. It does feel like I'm in Return of the Jedi right now. So it's the thing that does it, honestly, is the ferns, not the trees. It's these things I recognize most from the movies, because most of the shots are not of the trees, but of people like wading through the ferns.
I love that.
Any scout troopers, any sign of Imperials or rebel forces?
No, there isn't anything. There might be somebody jamming my transmission a little bit, because there's a slight lag. So maybe there's still a squad out there. Who knows? I might encounter them later.
Strawberry jam.
They've blown up the giant, the giant. Oh, what is that thing? I can't. Satellite dish.
We'll Death Star?
Satellite dish.
Oh,
yeah. No, the like
Death Star 3.
The shield. The shield. The thing that they're
the
blowing up.
shield generator.
Yeah, the shield generator. That's the word. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Doing great. Doing great on this. Chris, what? Is this the first Star Wars filming location you've been to, or like sort of?
Oh, that's a really good question. Obviously, no. I went to that Rogue One place in London, the underground that they turned into London Underground that they turned into a Rogue One station.
Talk about your contrast.
So I've been
the London Underground versus the Redwood Forest for places that film Star Wars.
Yeah, I haven't been to the exact dunes where they filmed a lot of the desert scenes in America. but I've been to someplace close to that looks really similar in California. So I felt like that was Tatooine when I was out there, because I wasn't too far from there. I don't think. And then that episode of The Mandalorian that Rodriguez filmed.
Yeah.
That I've been hiking out there before. I recognize that right away.
Oh, nice. nice. Okay. So where does this rank? Where does the Redwood Forest rank? If you're telling people to go visit a Star War planet, where would you put this one?
This is probably the coolest thing that I've been to. I mean, of those few things, I mean,
it's better than the London Underground Station. How dare you?
It's definitely better than that. I would say that I still really want to go to Lake Como in Italy, where they filmed some of the Naboo scenes. So I have a feeling that might top this whenever I do eventually get to go to that one. But until then, I think this is going to be number one. Because even if you don't care about filming locations, this is just a really amazing, beautiful place to visit. It's really cool.
Hannah, have you ever been to one of those big blue rooms where they filmed Attack of the Clones in Australia?
It was beautiful. It was breathtaking. Stunning. It was stunning.
Stunning. Chris, what do you think? What are you thinking about in Star Wars right now? Aside from, hey, look, there might be an Ewok over there.
Right. Okay. So about the topic. So you were just talking about the George Lucas interview when I so rudely interrupted.
That's all right. Anytime someone wants to call in from a Star Wars planet, that's fine.
Did you talk about some of the Acolyte details yet about the budget and things?
Anything. We're right at the beginning.
Okay. It's just okay. So I'll start with the Lucas stuff and then I'll move on to the Acolyte. And then do a preamble for that, and then you can actually dive into it.
Sounds good.
So the George Lucas stuff, there isn't really any comments I have on that I haven't commented on before, because he yes, NSYNC definitely was in one of those blue rooms. I still want to see that. That's where I'm off to next to go steal that footage. Yeah. So what was the thing? Yeah, he isn't saying anything new. So it's really dumb that people are spinning it in new ways. I mean, who is just saying about the thing you were just talking about the how the Force worked. He just mentioned that other people had different ideas of how it worked, which makes sense because it's different people. Why would they have the same ideas as him? So it's kind of really dumb that but of course it makes sense that certain sites have clickbaited that and made it sound like, an attack on the sequels, because that would always get views, sadly. An attack really on anything gets views. Attacks on Taylor Swift gets a lot of views. It's like a genre of media. So yeah, I just want to remind people again, I've mentioned it recently, George Lucas owns part of Disney. So he still has a bit of a say on the overall direction. And if he truly, truly hated where they were going, he would have a way to put pressure on it. He could threaten to sell his shares, which would absolutely plummet the Disney stock price. It would destroy Disney for a little bit if George Lucas did that. He still, even though things are different, he still is overall approving and not appalled in any way by the direction that Star Wars has gone in. And as we discussed previously, or we were going to discuss, I don't know if we ever got to it, but there was a story that came out about how he actually, someone said that he liked the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So there's that, which is really cool. And then moving on to the Acolyte, which is what I'm more excited to talk about than this kind of old news with George Lucas resurfacing with more people asking him the same old questions and him doing the same old answers. I'm very excited to hear that the budget for the Acolyte works out per episode to be very close to what the Andor budget was. Because I felt like the Andor budget was perfect. That show visually, with everything they did with the practical and the visual effects, was absolutely incredible. I thought it was just visually perfect. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the Acolyte, knowing that as much money per episode went to that as Andor. That's really, really exciting. So I again could not. I just whenever I think I can't be more hyped for the Acolyte, something else comes out making me more hyped for the Acolyte, and I can't wait these next several long days until it premieres. And I'm also very excited to. I don't know if I'll get to watch it in theaters or not. I don't know if those have all sold out or like reserved up by now, or if they're even near me. But I'm probably gonna be busy. But it's really cool for the people that do get to experience it. They're putting it in theaters as well. It's amazing.
I'd love to see it in theaters. Shame they didn't bother to do that in any other countries, but I'd love to see it in theaters, you know. Perhaps like a neighboring country where like several high profile talent people from Star Wars like have come from recently. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Anyway, yes. I agreed on the point about I'm happy for the people that will get to see it while just being salty that I don't get to see it. Yeah, and the budget too. I mean, this is the thing. Acolyte is more like Andor in the sense that they filmed it in the UK. They filmed it at Pinewood. They used the teams that worked on the films. Like this and Andor are much closer to Rogue One and The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and Solo and Rise of Skywalker in terms of production than Mando or Kenobi or any of the other shows. So you get that it, as you said, with Andor, it felt that way. And I think from what we've seen of Acolyte so far, which admittedly is just a handful of trailers and TV spots, it definitely feels that way, to be sure. All right. Well, Chris, thanks for dropping by. We won't take up any more time of your vacation. We'll let you get back to, losing yourself in the woods there. Try not to get eaten by an Ewok. If they do start catching up with you, just paint yourself gold and pretend to be some sort of god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
I have gold paint. I have gold paint with me for that reason.
I'm glad you packed that just in case.
Who needs bear spray? Gold paint's where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the safest thing to bring with you into the woods.
So good.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
Rest of their show. Bye, everybody. See y'all next week to talk Acolyte. So excited.
Woo. Bye, Chris.
All right. Yeah.
How do I want to make sure I don't kill the show.
Okay. There you go.
That happens every week. We're all so paranoid now.
Yeah,
We're
somebody's afraid of doing it. Yeah. I think that's the first time we've had a bit of a show recorded from a Star Wars location, from a real Star Wars filming station. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool for Chris. Let's get back to this the George Lucas interview, which like Chris was saying, like I was saying before, like it covers a lot of old ground. But George isn't going to talk down on the current films. Like he said, he says at one point, you give it up, you give it up. Like he's like, he's moved on. He seems to have made some semblance of peace with it. The one interesting bit of the interview, I do, and this is one of the clickbaity bits, but I think it's interesting for a different reason than usually gets brought up, is when he talks about the representation in Star Wars. When he talks about diversity in Star Wars, and he has the comment, most of the people are aliens. And then he, starts talking about, having Billy D. Williams and Sam Jackson in the movies, and points out, Princess Leia, Queen Amidala, those were the real heroes of the saga. All well and good, all well and true. I think this is the one little bit where we see a little bit of George isn't responding to the movies. I'm gonna make that clear. I don't think he's responding to the movies. But I do think he's responding to the discourse around the movies, because when they were casting Episode 7, when they were casting and making The Force Awakens, there was a lot is put on the diversity of the cast, and people were pointing out like you'd never had a Star Wars movie that was this diverse. And I think if you're George Lucas, you can I can understand somebody listening to that and going, hey, wait a minute. You're saying that, and you're starting to paint the old movies, and by extension, me, in a bad light. And so I can understand him sort of doing the thing that people say often, which is, it was a different time. And I do think that merits, being brought into consideration when something was made, the cultural context of something. But that doesn't mean it's you can't criticize it either. So, it's a weird tightrope to balance. Not many people can walk it very well. I know I certainly can't. But I think there's a moment, this moment in the interview, he gets a little bit fired up as George can get when he's talking about this stuff. And because I think he's responding, again, not to the movies. I don't think he's looking at The Force Awakens going, yeah, they shouldn't have done that. They should have just made it the way I did. I don't think he's saying that. I think he's just I think there was probably a feeling around episode 7 after he had basically been forced out of the production of the movie, that he probably felt like they were going a little bit too far in the criticisms of the old movies in order to up the new movies. And I think that's where you see a little bit of, what George really threw in this. And I think there's some new a new sense of what George really thinks. Again, not about the movies, but about the way people like Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and everybody talked about the new movies. Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I also think that this is something that the issue of representation is not a new thing. It's not a new complaint, because it's been a problem for many years. It was a problem in the 70s when Star Wars first came to be. And I mean, there's a very famous interview with Carl Sagan, where Carl Sagan's like this. I think he's kind of skewering the idea of for Star Wars, it's all white people. There's no people of color in this. What the heck? He was kind of miffed by that. I think maybe in part, maybe George is maybe thinking back to some of those criticisms. I like your idea that he's kind of like this, the pat on the back that Disney and Lucasfilm gives themselves now, in regards to, we got great representation now because we didn't previously. And George, as he would, because these films are so connected to him personally and emotionally, he would be like, hey, what the hell? I was a pioneer of my day. I was going back to A New Hope in this era where, there wasn't nearly as many or nearly enough great female characters. And you have, A New Hope is a direct skewering of the tropes of, oh, it's a damsel, it's a princess in a castle and they have to go rescue her. A New Hope is no, this princess is badass. She has to rescue the asses of all the other dudes in the movie because they're stupid. That, it's a direct commentary on that trope. And George was deliberately hey, I'm going to create this really badass female character that is going to really resonate with people and do something that's not doing enough at that time. I think and then he goes on, talked about, Padme, also revolutionary, a great female character. But then you go George, I hear what you're saying, but also in A New Hope, Leia was the only female character. She was the only woman in the movie. And yes, you went on to create Mon Mothma and Padme and all these amazing female characters. And you included people of color like Billy D. Williams and Mace Windu and, great characters. And I think he did things that other directors, other creators may not have made those choices. It still doesn't mean that, as much as progress as he made, there could have been more progress, and there was more progress to be made. And that's where we're making that progress now. I think George maybe is just at this point being trying to defend himself, going well, I was doing this. We understand George. George is right. But in context, you also have to consider that, we're making progress. You made progress where the people at Lucasfilm now are standing on your shoulders. They're making strides, continuing to make strides. for representation. And, there wasn't enough non-white people in the original trilogy, non-white straight dudes. But we're making progress now, and then the progress wouldn't be made if it hadn't been for the efforts of George.
Yeah. Hannah?
Yeah. Yeah, what this also has me thinking on, I mean, I think I agree. That's a great explanation there, Ben. And another element to this discussion I think about is, we could talk about the whole element of John Boyega's experience when he spoke about his experience as that, he's a person of color representing, having that representation through these movies, but his actual real life experience of that, working in that environment, at the best times was maybe not all that crash hot and not that fantastic and not that well done. And it's just it's such an interesting, I think, I can see how George is defending himself there in a way that Disney's like, we've got it on the nail on the head with everything. But, you look into that, you actually look at the evidence of that, and you hear John's comments of a lot of his experience of it, and it's not that great. So it's just so multifaceted of a topic that has, so many different experiences of it. But, it's something that we just have to obviously keep pushing for better and better circumstances.
Yeah. And it's made all the more worse, the situation, when you have the people that you have this commentary and George is commenting on it. And then you have people going like, yeah, you tell them, George, you always had diversity in Star Wars. That's why we don't need any more diversity. Like, no, that's not the message here. George would absolutely disagree with you if you said anything along the lines of, we don't need no more diversity in these Star Wars movies. No, George is not with you on that. It's unfortunate.
Oh yeah, you look at George.
A lot of really terrible people
you look at George's later works with movies like Red Tails, and then of course we did with Clone Wars with Ahsoka, on and on like that. Like, again, George I think is defending himself because I think George probably thinks if he was, making these movies now, or he made Star Wars for the first time now, he'd probably do something. He'd probably have a cast that looks more like the cast of The Force Awakens. So he doesn't like that Disney and Lucasfilm are out there saying they're righting a wrong, when he's like, I was doing what I was doing, and it was, progressive for its time. And I think, and that I think is a context that needs to be considered, and when discussing these things, and when talking about, where we were in the past, where we are now. And again, like that's to me, that's the most interesting little bit in the interview, because that's where you see George get a little bit fired up, and he talks about this the way he has talked about, defending the prequels in the past, or defending his decisions to make the special edition changes, because he's heard the criticism. George doesn't have Twitter, but George doesn't. George is aware. George is aware of what people are.
He's always kind of been aware.
Yeah, he's always been aware. He's never,
for better or worse.
Yeah, he always sort of knows. But yeah, the interview again. This interview is worth watching. It's a nice trip down memory lane. The guy who interviews him doesn't get all that creative with the questions. I think George's soul died a little bit when he asked him about the special editions and releasing the original cuts of Star Wars. I think George was like a little bit like, seriously, we're having this conversation again. Okay, here's why I did it, and here's why it doesn't exist. But otherwise, it's a decent enough interview. But the real George Lucas interview, where he talks about the Force, talks about his movies, talks about his characters, that's out. That should be out there someday, and I hope it gets made, because again, George C says, nobody really understood what the Force is. Nobody understood what it was. So I'm like, yeah, okay, George, tell us that. Tell us what you know. Pass on your wisdom, and give us your thoughts on what these things could be. But yeah, also just congratulations to George on, this honorary prize that he got. It's a pretty cool career accomplishment. All right. Let's talk about the Acolyte. Acolyte. It is what are we at, Ben? 5 days away, 4 days away, 6 days away?
We are.
Give us the exact.
It's like 4 days and
22 hours,
23
minutes and 20 seconds.
Damn it.
There you go. Amazing. This is what Chris was alluding to earlier. The budget. Somehow the budget of the Acolyte was revealed. There was a great New York Times article that goes into the making of the Acolyte. Leslie Headland's a big part of it, and they touch on the budget, and it's about $180 million for 8 episodes, which comes out to about $22.5 million. That's a lot of money. I think the show looks pretty good for that amount of money.
It's a lot of money. Yep.
I would like somebody to give me $22 million and say, do something with this. That's what I would like.
Yeah. Make a lightsaber show. Yeah. And I think, I mean, the comparison that has to Andor, like what we mentioned at the start, is going to be really incredible. And that's been like, because my main comment, seeing what we've seen so far of all the, the trailers, the clips and things, is just, oh, this looks good. It looks good on a screen. It's rich and it's full, and every shot is really, it's not a set. It's, this is going to be a really interesting fantasy world that we're going to jump into. And I think that budget is going to really aid that experience, hopefully actually throughout the episodes. So, as much as I might have critical views of Andor, I could never, ever deny how fantastic that show looked, how expansive and big that felt, and because of that big budget. So hopefully that's where the budget went as well. Yeah, I think it's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Ben?
Yeah, no, I think it shows. Like it's definitely like, even because like every little bit that I've seen of the footage, I was just like, wow, this I'm in with Hannah. Like this looks really, really good. And then the second trailer hit, and I was like, okay, this feels really good. And then watching that scene in the Phantom Menace, and I'm sure it helps seeing it on a big screen with not a darkened room, but a lit up room, and but on a big screen nonetheless. And it looks amazing. The production value is there. And I'm not necessarily throwing shade at other Star Wars shows, even though, yes, I have in the past been disappointed with, some of the production value of other shows. I think a lot of ways, but 80% of Star Wars shows have looked like movies. They've looked like true, this was filmed on a movie budget. And there's been about 20% that's been like, this, y'all could have done better with this. Y'all could have done better with this. Acolyte definitely looks as good or better than Andor. I mean, I consider Andor, as far as production and, production quality, production design wise, to be top tier. So yeah, Acolyte, it's really shaping up. Like every new screenshot is like, this looks good, guys. I think this show might actually be good.
There's this one shot that came out just yesterday, and I think you must have posted it, Ben. I don't know where it came from, but it's this shot of Coruscant, and I want to. It looks so good. I want to eat it. It looks so good. It's amazing. It's freaking sick. And I'm like, oh my God, this looks so
There's
cool.
a new, what was it? It was a featurette or something that they released. Because by the way, the ad campaign and the amount of featurettes and clips and interviews and everything has been like, it's like a Star Wars movie is coming out next week. Like it truly is. I think it bodes to I think Lucasfilm's attitude towards this, and we know it's different, okay? We know they treat different Star Wars shows differently. It's just a fact. With the animated stuff, it's just like, just release the damn thing. We don't even care. That's basically it. And then there's other Star Wars shows yes, we know Mandalorian and Grogu, those are our golden boys. We're going to treat them well. We're going to do a bunch of things. And then other Star Wars shows and things. Acolyte is like, bombastic. There's so much stuff going on. They released something today. It was a Leslie Headland, Dave Filoni interviewing themselves. It was like,
so good.
This is so good.
Yeah, that was terrific. That was just one of those things where why they don't make that for everything is baffling to me. They should have that, and I want to see the entire conversation between Leslie Headland and Dave Filoni released. Just put out the entire 20 minutes that they're in those chairs.
And I want to see how Mike Zero spins the Lucasfilm Civil War. What is the new wrinkle in the Lucasfilm Civil War now that we've seen Leslie Headland and Dave Filoni sit down and have a nice chat? Okay, are they going to be analyzing their faces and seeing like, oh, he actually secretly hates her, she actually secretly hates him?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll work that out somehow. Well, seeing as we're just a handful of days away from the Acolyte, I'm not going to ask for predictions because weirdly there's some like official spoilers that are out there that are like,
watch out, guys.
Like I don't know how some of these things got out, but then it's just been said by the cast and crew, which is interesting. So I won't ask for predictions, but like, what are your hopes for the Acolyte? What are you feeling going into it when we're sitting here, 8 weeks from now and the show is done? What are you hoping to have experienced from this show? Hannah, you look like you're pondering this deeply.
Yes, I am deeply. I hope that at the end of the show, we have, just a great story, a compelling story with compelling characters, of course. But I hope it's so good and so intriguing that we come out with more questions, and we come out with, so how did they go about doing this? And this person died. I wonder what's going to happen to this Padawan or this Jedi, or this character here. And we'll be, you want that to have that at the end of Star Wars. You want that drive for more. And I think that's what makes the Star Wars movies so good, because the endings are always conclusive, but it always makes you ask more questions. And I think that's what I want from this show. I mean, it's pretty much confirmed that there's a season 2 of Acolyte. And I think that's going to be really important, that there's that effect that we go, oh, what does that mean for season 2? These characters could be in it in this way, and people want books. People are talking about it, and they want more content around this era, because I think they could really create an impact in the Star Wars timeline here that people really delve into. The High Republic is impressive. The writing of it is actually bloody-tastic, and it has been for a long time, but not enough people are realizing it. So I'm kind of hoping this show creates this discussion around the Force and Jedi, and even more so that people delve into this era really, really hard. So that's a bit of like a conceptual, but I think that's what I want, that it's like the characters are so good that we want to know everything about them. That's what I want.
Ben?
Yeah, so I always go into these times really looking forward to, and then enjoying, and then very much missing after it's over, just the time in which a show is on like this. Like, obviously we just came out of Bad Batch. It's always fun to like anticipate it and week to week watch a new episode, stay up late sometimes. Now, at least those of us in America and the Americas will not stay up as late. I'm really gonna like that. I like having my Tuesday night is gonna be set for the next few weeks, and I'm very much looking forward to that. But on top of that, just the discourse and how, like, obviously, like, weirdly, I'm like, I hope everyone enjoys it. I hope everyone like really, because like it does bum me out. Obviously, it bums me out when I don't like something, but it really bums me out when I really do like something, and I see a lot of people are like, I'm not feeling this, because I genuinely like. I want everyone to like the thing. I want everyone just like, I wish we were all just one big happy family, just enjoying the thing, and nobody had any criticisms. It would be really boring, but ultimately, I want us all to enjoy this thing, but ultimately just how we enjoy it, I think, and getting into the minutia of who is the Acolyte. I think this is going to be a big mystery. I think we're going to have some really interesting discourse in regards to people are already speculating about like who's the guy under the mask, who is things. I think Leslie Headland was talking about how like, because I think I said it, I'll pat myself on the back. Like I was like, oh, this is like Scream. This is like a horror movie. This is like, oh, there's a person. We have a bunch of main characters, and there's a person in a mask running around killing people. And ooh, who could it be? And like I think that's gonna be the discourse of just like, I think it's May, or I think it's Jackie. Like it's gonna be like that, and that's gonna be really fun things. And leaning into that discourse, I love it when we have a reason to do that versus just stupidly doing it like we did for Bad Batch, of just like, oh, this guy's legs look like this and he had that look and that must be him. Yeah, it's embarrassing sometimes, but I think there actually is something, and who knows, could be Darth Tech, maybe Tech fell through a time wormhole and he is the Acolyte.
Yes, just like how we established last week, Poe Dameron and grown-up Omega fall through the world between worlds, go back in time, and give birth to Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've figured that one out last week, and this will continue that. Yeah, my hope, sort of building off of what you guys have said, I'm looking for the show to be a great journey, to be with great characters, really, a classic Star Wars adventure with the new twists and all that stuff, all the sort of standard expectations. I'd really love for it to stick the landing and have a fantastic ending, because the last two live action Star Wars shows, the two that came out last year, they ended with a bit of a fizzle rather than a bang. And Star Wars is capable of ending with a big bang with these Star Wars shows, but the last two have not. And I'd like Acolyte to be the one that kind of comes in and goes, yeah, this is how it's done. And like you were saying, Hannah, just have everybody be absolutely ready for a second season, a third season, a movie. Maybe that can be the next one to get a movie treatment, all that stuff. I'd like to see, them stick the landing for season one and end in a strong place. That's the hope, anyway. That's the hope. All right. Shall we answer some questions? I think we should answer some questions.
We shall.
Yes. I have the first question. Ben, are you building the Millennium Falcon right now? Are you building that this week?
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't I be?
Okay, let's see it.
I don't know. Can we get an update? Oh my god, you literally are.
Oh, there is.
Slow going. It's slow going.
Oh, I see.
It's slow going. Look, I'm trying to make some progress. I was hoping to have some progress by the end of the show, but it's been really slow going. There's some really complex stuff happening here. Okay, it's complex. It's a lot harder than it looks, guys.
It looks like you've just added like 2 orange pieces since last week.
It's a hell. And then I'm doing this, and then I'm looking back like, okay, there's something under here that's not supposed to be here, and it's showing it here. So I go back, I realize, I didn't put the under pieces. I had extra pieces from the last bag I didn't put on there, and I missed them. Thankfully, I didn't have to tear the whole damn thing apart again to fix that. Oops. But I'm going forward, and got a lot of pages left in this thing. So
a lot of pages to go. All right, so let's get into these. Some of these questions. These were submitted by you, the listener, in our Discord. If you're listening live and you want to submit a question right now, you can super chat or just do a regular chat and make it really good. First one is actually for you, Hannah. This comes from Turbo 1975. Turbo says, Turbo says, question for Hannah. Are the Central Coast Mariners the greatest team in the history of A-League in Australia?
Yes. Yes, we are. Of course we are. Winning the treble, AFC Cup, Premiership and Championship, baby. We are the greatest soccer team in Australia forever. That'll never happen again, and we're the best. So yes, this is my answer. Correct.
I was unaware you played for the team.
Yeah, I don't know why. Sounding like that. Oh,
Revelation.
Has Matthew been keeping you up to date with this at all, Dom?
Not a clue. No, I'm not no idea.
Okay, don't worry.
No idea. I have no idea. Not an idea.
Matthew is very invested in the soccer team I support here in Australia. He's very invested in it for me. So, but I am as well, obviously. But yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. But yes, we just won the championship over the weekend, which is fantastic. Yay, go us.
Well, congratulations.
We have the best stadium in the world, by the way, as well. Next question, I'll get you a photo of how great our stadium is, and I want everyone to tell me how great it is. Yes.
Great. All right. That's really, that's really wonderful. As a Toronto sports fan, we haven't won anything ever, so I'm very happy for everywhere else in the world.
Thank you.
Very happy for everywhere else in the world that does win things. And congratulations to the Gold Coast Mariners for winning. What did you call it?
Central Coast Mariners.
The treble cup.
The treble.
The treble.
Well, so they call it the treble because we won 3. There was the Asian football champions and the premiership of the league, and then also the championship of the league. So we run 3 trophies in one season. So they call it we won the treble.
There you go. Won the treble. I like that. That's good. I like how soccer has all these fun sayings added in with Australian fun sayings, and you get something.
Yeah.
You get the treble. All right. Next question comes from Dr. Hugh 17, who says, in relation to George's comments about the presentation of episodes 1 through 6, I've been wondering if there are any other reason for why he has a big traction for making changes to his films besides the more overt reasons, such as the number of changes made to Star Wars being and Star Wars being a mainstream presence. It's not as if he's the only person who updates his projects in the world of film and television. So why does George get the most attention for, updating and making changes to his movies is the question. What do we think? Ben?
I think he made the most show of it, probably. I mean, and also it's Star Wars. You're talking about 3 of the most popular films ever made. Of course, people are going to take notice when you start changing them, and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to put them back in theaters, and we're going to do all this, and we're going to keep changing them. And whenever every time they release, there's a new change, and these are movies that people have seen over and over again. They're ingrained in people's memories. And anytime you do make a change, it's noticeable. Like, I notice things to this day when I'm watching Disney Plus. I'm like, that wasn't on the original. That wasn't when I was watching VHS. That wasn't there. That's that Crate Dragon call changed again. I don't remember McClunky. Like, it is these things that ultimately, it's such a huge part of our culture. I think that ultimately, it changes. Obviously, some of it is unfair. Some of it is fair also. I think I've seen a lot of comments lately of just with the whole comments, all the quote unquote controversy around George saying I still don't want to release them, even if he probably doesn't even have any say over that anymore. They literally does not own the movies anymore. So it's up to Disney. He has his things, and I think it also goes back to he doesn't like that A New Hope. he never was satisfied with that movie. So this is all just a thing to make him more satisfied, make him more happy with the finished product.
There you go. Yeah, I think maybe he got a little overconfident, and he went into the special edition saying these are going to be better. These are more true to my vision. They're better. Right. And then people saw those changes. And really, growing up with the special editions and the DVD releases and that sort of thing, the stuff people rage about, Greedo shooting first, the Crate Dragon stuff, the drive into Mos Eisley, the stuff people say, ruins the movie. I'm like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That stuff was always there as far as I'm concerned. Now, am I interested in seeing the original theatrical cuts for historical perspective? Absolutely. And I think there should be a way to see them for that reason. But I think the changes in the grand scheme of the movie are really minor. But like Ben said, the special editions were hyped up so much that you wound up, with people coming and going like, hey, you said these were going to be better, but they changed things that I liked. So now I think they're worse.
And I mean, and it comes down to George. Like George is an artist. He carries lots of labels. Producer, director, writer. Whatever label. But at heart, he's an artist, and he's every great artist is a perfectionist, and they feel like their work is never done, even if it's an incredible, whatever it is, whatever medium. It's never, almost never done to them. So I think he's just in an interesting case where. With film, it is kind of unusual to go back on like a film. Like, to be fair, I don't know too much else about film history. Like, what if they just went back to like E.T., like the E.T. movie, and they
they did. They did.
So you're serious?
Yeah, no, 100%. Spielberg re-released E.T. With changes, and there was a similar reaction.
That's hilarious.
Changed guns to radios or something.
Yeah, that's what they. And then he went and changed it back. He caved to the pressure and changed back. George has never changed to the.
But that's the interesting thing. Or it's like it's this balance of like you're an artist and you want to have your vision, manifest in that way, in a certain way, and then like the response to that is of its own impression, and it's just constantly got to be that line to walk. And I think I kind of commend George for just being like, I like the
and there's that,
I like the freaking animal in there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's that old feature. I can't remember if it's Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones or for Revenge of the Sith for that matter. But like, it's the whole. I think it's titled "Films Aren't Released; They Escape," and it goes into just like examines the idea of just like. We think of like, a movie's a thing. I do it, and you look at it, and you process, and you put all the visual effects, and you edit it, and you go in, and you're like, it looks great. Let's release it. Like that's not how movies are made. Movies are like it's just a bombastic marathon to try to get it done before it's done, knowing that you won't. You just okay, this shot's not finished. It's just good enough, and just ship it to theaters, and that's what it is. And as an artist, that's very unfulfilling. You want to be able to say, I'm going to sit here and touch it up. No, it doesn't happen with movies. And, you can imagine being a filmmaker, you're wanting your ultimate vision to be things. It's just like, I guess it's okay. It's good enough. Just release it. Like, no, I want it. And George put his foot down and said, no, damn it. I'm going to go back and make these movies the way I wanted them.
One of the funny comments I found in the interview, and you can correct me on this, Dom. I think it was in context of talk. He was questioned about the Marvel movies, the Marvel cinematic impact that's been happening, and I think this was in response to that. And George says, cinema is just the art of like moving pictures. So if it's a moving picture, it's cinema. Something kind of along those lines. And I'm like, that's so just like conceptual film school nerd. Like that's such a great comment. Just be like, if it moves, it's a movie.
Yeah.
Well, it was in response to good old Marty Scorsese, who claimed that Marvel movies are not quote unquote cinema in his view.
Right.
And George takes the more literal approach, which I also take. It's just like it's a moving picture on a screen. It's cinema.
Yeah. It's gonna be whatever it is. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. Hannah, while we were talking, you sent over some pictures of your team stadium.
Yes.
That is really nice. Wow. That is a great stadium.
Look at that. Isn't that fantastic?
With a view too. Good.
Yeah.
We have palm trees. It's very green, and there's water, and it's beautiful. And there's giant sauce bottles because our main sponsor is like a sauce company here in Australia. So like you can see by the screen down there, there's like there's the ketchup bottles and mustard bottle down there. But yeah, it's a good stadium. Look at that of a nighttime. How stunning. Yeah. How good.
This makes me
Is that what Australia X looks like? I thought it was just Mad Max. I thought it was just all red and orange. Geonosis
I saw Furiosa this week. I was expecting just
where's
crazy
the
vehicles with people murdering each other for cabbages. Yeah. Yeah, this definitely makes me want to go to a Central Coast Mariners footy match. Footy match.
Yes. Oh, what? Who are foot?
Now
it's
that's
soccer.
a good name.
It's
Mariners. You're on the water. Come on.
Yeah, we're the Mariners. Yeah,
there we go.
But yeah, I don't even know how we have a soccer team. We're not even a city. Like that's because this is like my hometown. We're not even a city, but we versed like Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane. We just were like fought our way up there. I don't know how we're there, but we're there.
There we go.
Anyway.
There we go. Dr. Hugh has another question for us. Says, what craft do sheep fly?
Oh, here we go. What craft does sheep fly? I don't know, like a Bahang A380 or something.
That's kind of better than the answer. It's a U-wing. U spelled E-W.
Oh, U-wing.
Yeah, U-wing.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And
that joke is bad.
Oh, just get ready. Dr. Hugh says, I do not feel sheepish for making this dad joke. I can also assure you that I'm not pulling the wool over your eyes.
Zing.
There we go.
That's great. Fantastic.
Next question comes from Vlad Sander, who says, with the Acolyte premiere rapidly approaching, how will y'all set up to watch? Will you have a favorite snack nearby? Favorite drink? Then asks, recently there's been a massive debate online concerning the similarities and differences between Dune and Star Wars. Where do our hosts land on the subject of Dune inspiring Star Wars? I'm also curious who else has spoken up in this debate, only to say that the Edgar Rice Burroughs Princess of Mars novel inspired both, as it was published in 1912, over 100 years ago. All right, what's your setup for watching The Acolyte?
Me here, cup of coffee, couple of snags, couple of multis, and we're sitting for a banger show.
Couple of what and what?
Okay.
Couple of snags and multis.
Like Maltese. Did you guys have Maltesers?
Oh, Maltesers. Okay. I thought you were talking about multivitamins.
Crush a couple of multivitamins and lock into the show.
Gotta be hilarious. What's a snag?
Like a sausage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Turbo. Oh, there's Turbo's in the chat translating.
Oh, Turbo gets
live translating. Yeah.
Because it's at a weird time for us. It's at 11. So the coffee and the Maltesers kind of go together. And then but by the end of the show, I'll be like hungry for lunch. That's why I'll have snags. So I'm like setting myself up for the day. That's my plan.
For me, I'll just go ahead and recreate it and go.
For everybody listening, Ben's holding up his phone and making faces.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's me.
There you go. I will be getting home very late from work that day, so I'll probably be watching it. I'll probably just watch it, on a laptop with all the lights turned off to not wake anybody else up, and also to simulate the cinematic experience as best you can. Ideally, I'd watch it in a theater the day before, but they're not doing that here. And I can't even figure out.
Mad.
I can't.
Mad.
I am. I can't even figure out where. I can't even figure out where they're doing it, because if I click on the website, it's like this website is not available outside the U.S.
Yes. It's like, how dare you, you alien! Stop trying to find us. Yeah.
But imagine being in the U.S. Being in the U.S., but living in a place where there's not any within like several hundred miles, like few hours drive. And I was literally just in one of the cities where they're having one of the things, and I'm not there now.
That is
imagine
so sucky.
if you would. My pain.
That is too bad. That is too bad.
It's painful.
All right. As for massive debate about Dune inspiring Star Wars, there is no debate. Dune absolutely inspired Star Wars.
Dune ripped off Star Wars. Okay, this is not a debate. This is for real. Okay, it's shameless. George Lucas. Look, I think that's what they missed. Honestly, things like they should make. George, are you going to be filing suit against Denis Villeneuve? Like this is an outrage.
Yeah. No, Dune obviously inspired Star Wars. There's so much in there that is clearly an inspiration. A desert planet, the fact that they call the drugs spice, having like a galactic empire and an emperor and all that. Like all of this stuff is very clearly inspired Star Wars, as did many other things, including Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and all that stuff. So there's why there's a debate. I can't understand it. It's clear. It's obvious. It's plain as day.
And Desert Planet inspiring F-105's
there you go.
song Desert Planet.
Yeah, there you go.
Biggest inspiration right there. Honestly, as someone who has dabbled in writing, and obviously, you make up your own Star Wars fan fictions or whatever else.
You've dabbled in writing, Ben?
Oh, don't lie. Everybody does it. Everybody does fan fiction. Okay.
What are you writing over the Ben?
If you deny, you're lying. We've all done it.
Synopsis, a one-line synopsis of one of your fan fictions.
I just imagine Ben in this room where he records the show, like getting out like an ink pot and a feather quill and a scroll and getting ready to write, and somebody knocks on the door and they're like, "Hey Ben, what's going on in there?" He's like, "Nothing." Definitely not
drugs?
writing.
I don't know. Well,
yeah. That the TikTok sound. What's going on in there? Drugs.
What you got there? Smoothie.
That's better than saying you're writing fanfic. It's Raylo fanfic, isn't it, Ben? That's why you're not saying it. It's definitely Raylo.
Confirm nor deny.
That's good.
But okay, to my point. As an admirer of actually good filmmakers and people that write stories that are worth reading, I take inspiration in George, not just because he was a great filmmaker and a great writer, but the fact that he was so shameless in just like ripping off other things. And he wasn't like, I need to come up with this brilliant idea that's completely original. Like, no, I'm just going to take from this thing. I like Dune. I'm just going to take spice from that and a desert planet and stuff like that. I'm going to make it into my own thing. And Star Wars has never been this thing where it's 100% original, because it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. Star Wars has always been an amalgamation of basically all the things George loves.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with it because he's always been upfront with that. George has never been like, oh yeah, I came up with the spice concept and whatever else. Like, no, he's been very open and honest about his inspirations. I think that's a good inspiration for anyone writing a story or trying to, I want to write a screenplay. I want to write a book. I want to write a novel, whatever else you want to do, I have to have that really good idea. I have to have something that's original to me. Like, no, take inspiration from what you love, because one of the greatest storytellers ever that I've ever known did that exact thing.
There's this saying, I'm going to butcher it, but it's something to the effect of good artists take inspiration, great artists steal. And that's what you get. Hannah, can you confirm or deny this report we're getting from the chat from Kirsty, who says Hannah's fanfiction would be a love story about Ki-Adi-Mundi?
I am the target of hate speakers of trying to ship me and Ki-Adi-Mundi. I feel attacked. I feel attacked by this threat, Kirsty.
Okay. All right. Dang. Okay. All right, next question. This one.
Hannah's like, please, this is a witch hunt. They're out to get me.
Well, and since you just did that impression, Ben, we'll go to this one from the chat from F105. It says, okay, Dom, why are you advertising Trump's hair? In reference to this t-shirt that I'm wearing, that's a sort of a remix of the Green Day album cover for the album Nimrod. Just they've used Trump's mugshot, and given today's news, thought I'd just gloat a little. Guilty on all counts.
Oh yeah.
All right, next question comes from Joel, who says, my question to the Star Wars Underworld is, what are your thoughts on the death of the author? Jesus. And the idea that argues that the meaning of a text is not determined by author's intention, but rather the reader's interpretation. So basically, as this applies to Star Wars, George's authorial intentions don't matter and the viewer's interpretation of a piece of art matter more. This theory was applied to novels, but you can apply it to movies as well.
Can you explain that to me like I'm 5?
Yeah, me too. I think I lost it
so
somewhere like right at the beginning.
So the idea is that you shouldn't care what the writer of a book or the director of a movie, what they wanted you to take from it. What matters is what you as the audience took from it. So if the author says this is a commentary on this is a commentary on, you know, this issue, but you're like, oh, actually I took this completely other thing from it, then what your experience reading or watching the story matters more than what the person who made it wanted you to get. My feeling on that is that both are relevant and both are true. Like, I am very interested in what George intended us to get from the Star Wars movies, just as I'm very interested in what JJ and Ryan and Leslie Headland and Tony Gilroy and all of those people, you know, anyone who makes a Star Wars thing, I'm very interested in what they hoped the audience would get, what their intentions were when they were telling the story. And I think that matters. I do think that matters. But if you got something else from it, I'm not going to say that you're wrong or that what you got from it doesn't matter. I think both are relevant. And both complement each other and bounce off each other in interesting ways. So I don't subscribe to the theory completely, this idea that Joel is talking about, the idea of the death of the author, because I do think it matters what the author thinks. But I also don't think it's the be all end all of the experience, because we're all individuals and we all experience art and storytelling and all this stuff differently. And this experience that we all have watching something, part of the reason we do this show is we all watch the same thing. You know, next week we're going to watch the Acolyte premiere, and then we're going to come on and we're going to talk about it. And there's going to be stuff we agree on, and there's going to be stuff we disagree on. And that's what makes this show and conversations like it interesting. I hope, anyway. I hope that's what makes it interesting. Because if we all just got on here and went, that was cool, that was awesome, that was great, and just agreed, then it wouldn't be that interesting. But because we all bring something different to the table, then we can have a discussion about what we thought of the show. And even though, unfortunately, Leslie Headland won't be on the show next week that we know of, you know, what she intends us to take from the Acolyte premiere, I do think is relevant and interesting and worthy of discussion, even if each of us comes away getting something different from what she intended and different from what the other ones of us got, if that makes sense.
Yes. A kind of analogy I'm thinking in my mind in terms of, you know, how we perceive the artist and of a director, or you know, author writer of these stories. I think about if we were in an arts gallery. If you know, you're walking through a gallery and there's various artworks along the wall. If you stand in front of a painting and you go, I was really hoping that this painting was gonna make me, you know, jump for joy and get really excited, but it didn't. And it's kind of, in that context, it's kind of ridiculous. It's like, well, how would they know to do that for you specifically in this way of how you experience that and how you feel that? You cannot do that for every person ever. And I think in this context of, you know, movie media, you got to find I think it is a balance game in a way of understanding that this is still an art form, and things shouldn't be for the audience in the sense that what am I trying to get to? It's not exclusively for the audience. Should not be the sole reason because that's a soulless reason. You have no point. There's very little purpose and heart to that.
Yeah, that sort of relates to something George says in that the interview, right? Is he says, when he started making movies, and when Coppola and that sort of first generation of filmmakers that went to film school started making movies, is they all just wanted to make movies. That's what they wanted to do. They weren't setting out necessarily to be rich and famous. They just wanted to tell stories and make movies, and so they made those. Then the balance of the movie, or the realities of the movie business, then come into it, which is, tickets have to be sold to pay for these movies, yada yada yada. So you have to generally make movies that people like, and so then there's other people who it's their job, it's their thing to figure out what audiences want, and audiences largely we don't know what we want. We don't know what we want. There's nothing better in my mind than sitting down for something and being totally surprised by it. Thinking going into something, not really knowing anything about it, and sitting it down and going, wow, that was amazing. Like, that's the best sort of feeling. And so, those people are trying to figure out what people want. The filmmakers and the storytellers are trying to just tell stories, and somehow they've got to come to an agreement to make something that will hopefully be a great story, and hopefully be something that people want to see, and thus allow both sides to, fulfill their obligation. To the filmmaker to tell a great story, and the business people to make a lot of money off of it. So yeah, it's a tightrope. It's a dance. It's a thing that people are always trying to figure out, and sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. Ben, do you have any thoughts on this? On the death of the author?
No, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it, both of you. But like, ultimately, because that is something that often gets talked about a lot in fandom. I see a lot of discussions in comment sections from Twitter to Facebook and everything. They're just like, artists like George's intent specifically, because you have the memes about, how could the original trilogy be an allegory for the Vietnam War? But that the only way that could be is if the America was the empire, and people like realizing this as they're writing their comments, that this is actually like these are things that George said back in the day. He was like, Richard Nixon is actually Palpatine. Like, these are the things that he said. Mm-hmm. And, George can be an unreliable narrator sometimes, but he's been very open about his interpretations and the things that he put into these movies that are undeniable to that. You can obviously bring something to it. I think ultimately, I agree with you guys that, like, ultimately it's one part the author, whatever the author says they are intending. Sometimes that can change because authors can change their mind, and George has said conflicting things before in the past. And then there's also what you bring to it. I think in certain cases you really need to take it one step at a time. Other times, other franchises, the death of the author really kind of needs to come into play when, say, for example, Harry Potter, and
I was about to mention
things.
that, actually. Yeah, that's a good example.
Just the whole idea of people growing up with a franchise and having it mean something to them. And it's sad when the creator loses their damn mind and starts saying all kinds of insane things and being just one of the worst people. And how do you deal with that? Because ultimately the franchise is still there. The movies and the books, they're still there. They still mean something, and they taught you something. But you realize the person that created it. Thankfully, us Star Wars fans have not experienced this. George is still a pretty good dude. Thankfully, he hasn't lost his mind. So that's something. But I can't even imagine like dealing with that and going like, okay, how am I things? And obviously, there is some questionable things in Harry Potter. I don't want to get into that, but it's an example of like how this can go both ways. I'm just like, you need to respect the author. You need to take what they're saying in perspective, but you also need to be able to completely throw the author's opinion away if you need to.
Yeah, it's ultimately, I think, well, so art in it is a weird thing because it's a conversation between the artist and the viewer, and neither side can actually say anything to the other side. In reality, artists should make the product, make the art separate from the audience. The audience isn't there going, oh, paint that bit green, paint that bit red, whatever. They make it and they say, this is what I want to say. And then the audience looks at it and goes, this is what I get from it. And those are two separate things. And again, neither one of them is more right or wrong. And they may complement each other. They may be in opposition to each other, but they do. Each of them is valid and interesting to bring up in a conversation. But once the art is done, no matter what the audience says, you can't change the piece unless you're George and you do your special editions. But that was right. George doing that for George. He wasn't doing that for the audience. The audience, for a lot of folks, would rather he didn't do that. They'd rather he left it alone. So, this is like a really hoity-toity academic idea that I don't think personally, I don't think I'm equipped to give a real strong answer to it. I haven't studied up on the literature, but ultimately, I guess I'll just repeat myself one more time and say I think that what the creator says matters. But it's not the be all end all.
Come on.
What you as the audience get from it also matters.
Come on, you're on YouTube. You can talk about things you haven't studied up on. Okay, you can talk about things you don't know anything about. That's what it's all about.
Sure. All right. Well, in that case, let's get right into quantum mechanics. All right. Okay. Final question here from the Discord comes from Matthew. Matthew says, question for everyone. Did you know that it's a sign that you're good if you can even do it with the broken heart? Reference. There you go.
Zing. Boom.
Zing.
There you go.
Boom. Zing.
Zing.
Boom. Zing and boom. Kaboom.
I love it.
There it is. All right. I think that's as good a place as any to begin to wrap things up for this week. Thank you everybody for listening. We will be back same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific next Thursday to review episodes 1 and 2 of The Acolyte. Enjoy the premiere. Hope everybody has a good time watching it. If you're in theaters, have the best time. If you're watching it at home,
if you're in a theater, we hate you.
If you're in the theater, well, just know that Ben hates you. Ben specifically hates you.
Specifically me.
And he's going to throw Lego at you. Enjoy it, whether you're watching it in theaters, whether you're watching it at home. Have a great time with it. The premiere of a new Star Wars show is always something special. It's always something to be savored. I hope everybody has fun with it. And then I hope everybody has a fun time discussing it, which we'll do on the show next week. Ben, as always, thank you for... Ben has frozen.
You froze on me. I think it was you. I think it was you, Dom, surprisingly.
All right. That's
a first.
I don't have a song to play when I freeze, which is a damn shame. A damn shame.
I just know that you were frozen and she wasn't. So I was like,
yeah, I was just like,
I'm used to everyone freezing for me. Okay.
But I was just like,
all right, yeah, this is a new experience for me. I like it. Okay. All right. Well, Ben, thank you for being on.
Frozen in carbonite. So it's been a pleasure as always. And can't wait for Acolyte Day. And we gotta see if I can somehow get this thing done before the end of the Acolyte. I've just started on, you will notice some finer details in the engine compartment of the Millennium Falcon. I put a little tube back here.
I thought that was the Dejeric table. At first, I thought that's
this is the front. This is the back. This is the front where the jar table would go up here.
Jeez.
Fake fan.
Yeah.
Jeez. There's also the doors here.
You know what?
Actually...
Yeah, I don't know if I subscribe to the death of the author, but I do subscribe to the death of the guy who builds Lego. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Ben. Follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E to follow updates on building the Millennium Falcon. And he will scold you for not knowing the layout correctly, apparently. But thank you, as always, for being on. Remind us, what day are you going green?
I am going green next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is 1 hour before the show releases. And I feel like it's reasonable for me to say, come and watch the show, because it's not at like 3 a.m. for a lot of you. So definitely tune in at a reasonable time, thank God, to paint myself green. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do it, because I also do like reactions and like a whole discussion afterwards. So I don't know if we're just going to do the whole thing green. I don't know what's going to happen. I think I got to commit.
Do the whole thing like in costume, in green, be Vernestra. And aside from during the point when you're making yourself green, reference it at all. Just let it be.
Reference.
Yeah, just leave it be.
Film a review video just with no comment that I look like the way I will.
Don't say a thing.
Like, hey guys, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about my review, and I'm just fully green. Yeah, I think I got to commit. Commit.
You can't comment on it at all.
Also, I'll point out Vernestra in the show is bald, so will you be shaving your head?
Okay, don't bring it up again. I've already had multiple people say like 2,000 likes and shave your head, and or 5,000 likes, shave your head. I've had so many people already comment that, so I don't know if that'll be a thing, but maybe.
If I get 1 like, I'll shave my head.
Actually, Dom, you would make an amazing Vernestra. Why aren't you doing it?
Okay. See, that's what we should do for celebration.
That's what we
should do. Both be Vernestra. You can be young Vernestra from the books when she has like purple hair.
Yes.
And I'll be adult Vernestra when she has no hair. There we go. We've settled. We've settled
this.
There we go.
See there, Japan. Let's go.
Figured it out. For the preview of the Acolyte season 2. Well, that's what we'll dress as.
Also, breaking news. I just built Han and Chewie's beds.
Oh, nice.
Why do they have 2 pillows?
It's a
because they want to be comfortable. Damn it!
This is just a footer and a header. They don't have pillows in space or blankets. Right?
That's true. They just lie on the floor. That's nice. Wait, how do we say that?
Verainstra.
Gee, that's not a fun thing. That's not fun. Rayon. Nah, yeah. God,
I think just Vernestra Ray is sort of maybe
What's her last name?
Rowe. So just do
Vernestra
Vernestra
my God, I'll
Ray.
just be Vernestra Ray. Oh
yeah,
my God,
there you go. Easy.
There you go.
Perfect.
Easy. There's lots of suggestions in the chat. Joseph says you could wear a bald cap. That could be an option.
Bald cap?
Matthew Hardy says go for a purple wig. That would be accurate to the books.
Maybe I should get some hairspray as well or something. I don't know. But maybe I should go for the purple. Yeah.
There you go. So tune in Tuesday on the Raeside. You'll find out. We'll see Hannah as Vernestra or Vernestra Ray. Whatever you decide. Whatever you settle on. Tune in. It'll be a good time, and check out all the other good content on the Raeside. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe to this show. Subscribe to this channel. You get all sorts of fun stuff, including Ion Cannon and the Tractor Beam, a couple of great Star Wars publishing adjacent shows, as well as this show, which is, I don't even know what it is this week. And subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Music, and Spotify. Join the Discord, take part in game nights and movie nights, and follow us on Threads. That's the thing to do. All right, that's it. That'll do it for this week. We'll be back next week to discuss the Acolyte premiere. We hope you join us then, and we hope you enjoy the Acolyte episodes 1 and 2. For Ben, for Hannah, for Chris, who's still lost on Endor, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's
Vernestra.
It's a wrap.
Nailed it.